What is high ticket closing and why is it the best vehicle for you to get into, especially if you're in your 20s, to earn financial freedom, to earn full autonomy, and to earn a very good amount of money? Now, I believe there's a bit of a common misconception as to what high ticket closing actually is. It really isn't that complicated. And I'm going to break down the full ecosystem as to how this job even exists. Now, what is it? What is it that you're actually going to be doing? You are a contractor. So you are self-employed. You are your own entity, and you will work as an online sales rep for small to mid-size businesses. So what you will be doing is taking Zoom calls that are usually about an hour long in length for a business selling a product or a service. And then within that 1 hour long call, it's your job to close the deal at the end, and then you will make commission. That's it. You can work for any company as long as they have the scale and the size to actually bring you on board and have it worthwhile for you to take calls and take commission. But for the most part, the way in which this is structured is you will have an influencer. So a business owner, an offer owner who launches a product or a service in the health, wealth, and wellness space. So as an example, you could have an individual who is very good at trading. He trades stocks, let's say. He builds a following based on him trading stocks, making money, being good at it. And then what he decides to do is launch a mentorship where people will pay him for him to then teach them how to trade stocks, be just as efficient and effective as him, and make money that way. So that would be his product or service. As another example, you have a fitness influencer, somebody who has gotten themselves into fantastic shape. He now launches a fitness coaching program where people can pay him to learn from him, diet, workout programs, and then get in as good shape as he has. There's his mentorship, product, service. Now, the influencer will begin to create content to market this. So they won't just be posting personal content going forward. It will be content angled towards selling said product or service. And from there, they will sell to their following via advertisements or via DMs. So people will either message them directly and say, hey, I saw you post on your story or post on Instagram that you've started this new training program. I'm interested. Can I speak to you? Can I find out how much it is, etc. Or they'll get traffic who didn't originally know of them but have seen an advertisement and say, hey, you know what? That sounds like something I'm after. I'll book a call in with him and have a conversation. Now, popularity grows and they will begin to need to outsource because as an influencer, as a business owner, they do have a limitation on time. There's only so much time they can dedicate to creating the content, to setting up the ads, to sending the DMs, to jumping on those calls, to closing the deals, to fulfilling on their service and fulfillment on the back end. So what they will then do is hire an appointment setter. Now what this is once again another independent contractor, somebody who is self-employed working online. And this is usually what people tend to begin with before they step up into closing. It's like the first step on the ladder. It's an individual who will now send the DMs and the messages for the influencer logged in on their account. So rather than them having to have all of these conversations, they'll now have an appointment setter chatting with people via Facebook, Instagram, email perhaps, having these conversations, building rapport, explaining the service, and then booking the call in. So this has now saved that individual time and they can now just focus on taking those calls while somebody else helps them to be booked. From here, they will continue to scale. Now they're going to pay an appointment setter. They can do a certain base pay, and then it will be 5% commission on deals that close, which the appointment setter has booked in. As that scales, they're then going to be limited on time because they're getting so many calls booked in that they'll need to hire a closer. Now, a closer is an individual who can now take those sales calls or meetings for the business owner instead of them having to, and they will pay the closer, the sales rep, 10% commission for every deal they close. So that is how you are going to make money, and that is how things are structured. Now, the original offer owner, the influencer, can focus on the marketing and the delivery. They don't need to put their time anywhere else because they have somebody now working for them, chatting to people on their accounts, booking in calls. They now have another person working for them, taking those calls and closing those deals and putting them through to the program. So all they now really need to do is hammer the marketing, hammer the content, and then of course make sure the fulfillment on the back end is where it needs to be and that the people getting on board are being delivered a stellar service. Now the business scales. Of course it does, because we're beginning this process where as long as we continue to grow, all we need to do is add another appointment setter, another closer, and it goes from there. Now the beauty of this business model, of this vehicle that is high ticket closing, is that it is one transferable skill. That is all you need. If you can learn how to sell, that's it. The only job you have is to have calls come through via Zoom onto your Google Calendar, booked in each day of the week. You'll perhaps send them a text beforehand to confirm the call and make sure that they'll be attending. You then jump on the call with them, spend an hour having a conversation and a chat, and then at the end of that hour, they say, yes, I want to move forward. Here's $5,000. You've just made $500, and then the moment they jump off that call, you have to do nothing else. There's a high probability you'll probably never see or speak to that individual again. So you have no burden of stress when it comes to fulfillment, to onboarding, to all the other gears of the business. All you need to do is focus on your job, which is sales, which is closing that deal. Now, this comes with minimal starting cost. You know, we have all of these other potential business models. You could become a trader. You could get into e-commerce. You could set up your own agency to help businesses scale and be a business owner. But all of these vehicles, for the most part, come with much greater risk or much greater additional startup cost. Trading, for example, you can dedicate yourself to refining that skill, but at the same time, simultaneously, you have to be fronting your capital, your money, and leveraging that for you to then take a profit. That comes with a risk. With e-commerce, if you're selling products, you need to initially purchase products to then sell them for a higher price. That means higher initial investment, higher risk. With closing, as long as you can close, as long as you have that skill set, you will make money. And you don't need to front any money to do so, besides the initial investment that you're going to make into your skill. Of course, if you want to work for a business, if you want to work for an offer owner who is making a good amount of money, who wants to bring on a closer that's going to be very effective and also make a lot of money, it's a team effort, then you need a level of credibility. It's like walking into any business, and when they ask you, why should we give you the job? You say, I watched some YouTube videos. I've been using ChatGPT lately. I've been watching some podcasts. I know what I'm doing. No. If you go up there and they say, well, what credibility do you have? What referrals do you have? What commitment have you put into this space? And you say, well, I've invested X amount of money into my skill set to go through a full education program to learn the process from this individual who has credibility already, who has been successful, and they can refer me directly if need be. That gives you a lot more leverage. That's what's going to enable you to actually get yourself a job, get yourself a role in this space. And it's why I launched Congruent Closers, my personal mentorship. After the last year of closing, I went from being a broke personal trainer making around $3,000 a month to now being a high ticket closer who consistently makes over $20,000 per month. And all that was down to was me taking an initial risk, taking a big bold step, breaking out of the comfortability and the normality that I feel as though I'd fell into, and going for something greater. And the beauty of this really comes down to the fact that once you've developed that skill set, it can take you anywhere. Knowing how to sell is really, in essence, knowing how to converse with other people, knowing how to build relationships, knowing how to have meaningful conversations. And that can get you into certain rooms, that can get you into certain places when it comes to further leadership roles, marketing roles, falling into becoming a business owner yourself, which is why I would argue that it is by far one of the best investments you could ever make. If you happen to be interested in working with me personally, then there will be a link down in the description. If you head there, you can actually book a call in directly and we'll have a chat. I've also attached my Instagram. So head on there, drop me a follow if you haven't already, and then shoot me a DM and we can have a chat about things if you've got further questions going forward. But that's the full ecosystem and summary as to what it is when it comes to high ticket closing, what your day-to-day will look like, and why the job exists in the first place. It can be done remotely. All you require is a laptop, Zoom, and access to a mobile phone. So as long as you have internet, you can work from anywhere in the world. You have nothing really tying you down. If you want to move business, if you want to move company, you can do at a moment's notice. You can pick your own schedule and timeline a lot of the time, depending on the offer, of course. You could work for an American offer, you could work for a European offer, you could work for an Australian offer, and then wherever you go in the world, you could align that with your day-to-day schedule. So it really does give you that freedom and that control that I think a lot of us are looking for in this day and age. So I hope this has been helpful. Please, if you are considering breaking out, pursuing a business venture yourself, I would highly recommend looking into high ticket closing and taking that step to break out of a perhaps 9-to-5 cycle that you may have been stuck in. So I will catch you in the next video.